Welcome to another episode of the AI Edge podcast. We are here to help everyone in the marketing and advertising industry keep up with AI news and how it affects our day-to-day work. So we are here with another very special guest today. His name is Chris Kelly. Chris, I'm so excited you're on the podcast because you're not only a very smart guy, an AI savant. Maybe I'll call you an AI savant. Are you an AI savant?
It's a reach, but I'll take it.
I'll take it. Okay, AI savant. You're my neighbor, which I really.
There we go. That's true. That's not a reach. Yes.
That's not a reach. You're my neighbor, and also you're my friend, and also
That's
I'm an
true.
advisor to
Also
your
true.
company.
You are. Look at this. The multiple threads between us. I love it.
So, Chris,
So
tell
this
the
conversation
listeners.
was meant to be.
Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Upwave. Upwave is an upper funnel measurement company. So we measure and optimize upper funnel outcomes. So brand building outcomes. So think upper funnel KPIs, awareness, consideration, intent, message association, all those things that don't lead to a sale overnight, but plant the seeds for future sales. So are extremely important for brands to invest in. We say, since it's World Cup season, we say it's getting the ball down the field so someone else can kick it into the net. So brand building doesn't get across the finish line, doesn't get their name in the headlines like the striker does who scores the goal. That's for performance marketing. But brand building is important because it's how you get the ball down the field in order to score later. So a seasonal analogy for your audience there in World Cup season.
Thanks, Chris. Go USA.
Go
Right.
USA. Let's do it.
I'm sorry for our international listeners who may be rooting for their countries.
And we should note that this is recorded before U.S. plays Paraguay, so we don't know the outcome.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen.
We don't know if we're feeling good or bad. Yeah,
we don't know. Future us will be either happy or sad. We'll see.
indeed.
So our typical other host is not here. Unfortunately, Miles Younger will not be joining us. So it's just me and you, Chris. Who needs Miles anyways?
You know, right? I was first disappointed, and then I realized anything I say that you push back on, I can blame the hearsay and Miles. Well, Miles told me this once. So great. If the data proves me wrong, it's really his fault. So he can be our scapegoat today in his absence.
That's great. I love that. And he deserves it. So, okay, let's get into the top stories of the week. So the big story was Apple got up on stage and made a bunch of announcements about their new AI capabilities, particularly as it pertains to Siri. And so they announced, a bunch of new things like Siri, once it gets revamped, I think it was part of a new OS update. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was, yeah. I think it's coming out in September. It's in developer testing now, but us mortals can get it in September, I think.
Okay, got it. So yeah, the new update was going to have basically new AI capabilities and functionality. And to be honest, if you go through what those new capabilities are, none of it's particularly mind-blowing, right? It's, Siri is going to be able to find an old email, or Siri is going to be able to...
catching up, yeah.
Yeah, they're just catching up, right? So like, Siri is going to be able to go research how you buy tickets for a concert. And so, basic stuff that, to be honest, Siri should have been doing a couple of years ago. But they're doing it now, I guess better late than never. A couple of other quick details about the story. So if you all recall, Apple announced a partnership with Google like a year ago or 6 months ago to basically use Gemini as kind of their underlying model for certain aspects of their, AI front end. And that's going to be the case here. There was also an announcement I'm not sure if it was an announcement or just a news story a few months ago about how Apple is going to be allowing users to use whichever AI model they want for certain other types of activities on Apple devices. So if I have like the Claude app downloaded, or if I have the OpenAI app downloaded and I have those models, there's going to be certain features within the Apple environment that let me toggle between models. But I believe for this like Siri stuff, it's going to be all kind of built on top of Google's models or essentially Gemini, which is a very important detail. And then also, really important to note, Apple recently launched an entire new campaign about privacy. And, they've been doing this for a while now, so it's not anything new. But to me, it is particularly rich that they're launching a privacy ad campaign kind of specifically aimed at Google.
Thinly veiled at Google when they're relying on Google for this company saving feature. Yes, it is rich.
Yeah,
Rich
very rich.
irony. Yes. Yeah.
So
No,
let's yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
No, I love it. It's great. It's fascinating. I agree with what you said about the lack of excitement. It does seem like table stakes. I think a lot of the reactions online were like, "Great, Apple, welcome to 2023." So and some of that snark is warranted. They admitted they had some misfires and took too long to get to this place. And again, it's still not out yet. So we've seen like the product marketing promos. We haven't seen what it's done yet. But I mean, in general, over the decades, Apple has proven it can build magical consumer experiences. So I don't think I would line up to bet against them in this particular case. It is interesting to see of course, because I think of everything from the brand perspective. It's interesting to watch what the brand residue will be on this because, like, is this going to be like Apple Maps, where remember when that came out in 2012, it was a joke. And that lasted like over a decade. Right? I remember still teasing a colleague in Cannes a couple of years ago. We were late for a meeting. I said, "What are you doing using Apple Maps? Like, everyone, you should know better." And I think he sent me an article like Apple Maps was objectively better than Google Maps at that point. And I've seen those things since. And now I think it's considered by anyone tracking the map space to be objectively better than Google Maps. But it had years of residue of like it being not performant when it launched. And Siri has that. Like even my kids make fun of Siri. Young grade school kids like will Bluetooth chat GBT on the way to school and like ask it the silly questions that young kids ask. And then they'll be like, let's ask Siri just to know it's going to fail. And of course, it's like 1 millionth of the capability of ChatGPT when you ask a moderately complicated question. So it's a joke to them that they'll make fun of Siri. So like if Siri's getting dragged by 6-year-olds, then like they've got a lot of ground to make up. So I wonder if there's even a conversation of like, was there an opportunity for a brand not Siri to be the new focal point here? I'm sure I would hope they at least discuss that. But I know Siri, there's enough equity built up behind Siri. Maybe that was too risky of a move to make. So that's going to be something to watch. Like, can they get over the reputational hurdles they built for themselves, and how quickly can they? For their sake, you hope people realize AI changes faster, right? And software apps, if the software app was terrible last year, you're not crazy to still be bad mouthing it a year later, right? That's like, I tried that app, I used it for a week, it was terrible. Like, if it was a year ago, you're not considered out of date on that information. But in AI, you are, right? If you told me you tried some financial model with AI a year ago and it didn't work, I'd say, dude, like a year is that's a light years ago in AI. Like, try it with the new model. So hopefully, for their sake, people realize these things can change faster than in traditional software apps. But it will be interesting to watch. I'm sure you have a take on this opens up presumably a new surface area for Apple Ads, which is exciting for our friends in Apple Ads and the ad community in general. So I'm sure you've been thinking through that of how they can take advantage of this from an ad standpoint while still not conflicting with their very public privacy goals.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle. I actually haven't thought about that too much. I mean, they've been very tight, obviously, about like
Yeah,
how they monetize data for advertising. I think I remember a few years ago there was an article in Digiday about how Apple is going to build a DSP, and I was talking to
yeah.
somebody recently who was like an early guy at Apple Ads, and they were going to hire people, and they had this kind of project in the works.
Hmm,
They
hmm.
completely abandoned it. Otherwise, the DSP would have been out by now, right? That article
Yeah,
dropped like 2-3 years ago. So I
yeah,
don't know
yeah,
about the ads angle. I do want to pull on a couple of the threads that you mentioned. So one is, um, I think like the thing that's interesting to me is Apple obviously has this massive spigot of distribution, right? Through
yeah,
the iPhones and through their devices. And yeah, they're in a little bit of a brand hole with AI, but AI is so early, to your point, that first of all, people are willing to keep giving it tries. Also, there's still a lot of people that are just not using it yet.
yeah,
And to be honest, the Venn diagram between people that don't use AI a lot yet and iPhone users might actually be pretty big,
yeah. It's a good point. Um,
because and I also think the voice aspect of it, like, yes,
yeah,
ChatGPT voice is amazing, it's very good, but I'd say the vast majority of even AI users are not using the voice functionality in ChatGPT or in Gemini. And so if Siri can make voice easy, it does a good job with the distribution aspect of it, and it makes it intuitive on iPhones. I think they have an opportunity to get market share, right? Yes, they're
Yeah.
late. Yes, they're playing from behind. Yes, they have a little bit of a brand perception issue. But I think they can make up ground fairly quickly because of some of those inbuilt advantages,
Yeah,
you
the
know?
huge point. That's a good point. No, I agree with that. I think, and yeah, you and I are a bad sample size here, living in the Bay Area, where all this stuff is
Right.
being built, and you're surrounded by AI geeks, and we're aspiring AI geeks ourselves. So of course, we're going to think about this differently than the quote unquote typical user. So that's a good point. There's probably a good amount of their massive footprint of the iPhone install base. Are there people who are daily Siri users who don't have the kids making fun of it like the big kids in the Bay Area do because they're surrounded by AI everywhere?
Yeah,
So that could be the the point where they may not, I'm overestimating how big that brand hurdle is. But I do think I think you're onto something with the voice angle too. I think that the combination of AI and voice, I'm constantly shocked even by people in tech who don't regularly use the voice chat feature. It's a whole other like vector of getting value, I think. And
totally.
I know you're like the weird guy when I'm out on a walk. If I'm taking a break between calls, on a walk, I'll talk to ChatGPT in my AirPods, which made the people walking by you think you're weird, but you can just explore an idea in ways you just don't do when you are typing. I'm
Totally.
sure like some psychologists can explain better than I can why that's the case, why different parts of your brain open up when you're speaking versus writing. But it is the voice is so powerful, so Siri does have a head start there. So that's a good point. They could have the ability to unlock some people that don't laugh at them yet for Siri being so far behind
Right.
from an AI standpoint compared to a Claude, a Gemini, ChatGPT, and that people are used to using it every day because yeah, it is a button click away. Or it
Yep.
is 2 words away. I won't say those 2 words or my Apple Watch and my phone will light up and interrupt us here, but two words away at any point in time. That's a pretty powerful edge they have.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Go
I
ahead.
was going to ask you, I didn't heard too much about I haven't read too much what you mentioned. They'll let you swap the underlying model and still run it locally. So the idea is you could have Siri actually point to Claude on your iPhone. That's the sense you picked up.
So there was a story a few months ago. We actually talked about it in our one of our newsletters where Apple basically has said that you can as long as you download the other apps,
Yeah.
which, in a roundabout way, this is a way for Apple to make more money on opening up because if you download the
Yeah.
Claude app and you're paying for
You're paying
Claude
for it. Yeah.
tokens,
They get their toll booth
Apple
tax.
gets the
Yeah.
rev share, right? So it's pretty smart for them to do that. But I don't quite know. I don't know if anybody quite knows which aspects of Apple's AI tools and capabilities are going to be allowed to, or consumers will be allowed to toggle the models versus which one's just going to be like, sorry, this is what you get. And it's built on a Gemini thing. I don't quite know the differentiation yet between which is which, but I'm pretty sure that that's where we're headed, where like certain things are going to be restricted to Gemini, but other things you're going to be able to toggle. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
yep.
interesting. No, that's interesting. So what do I think we'd be remiss not to talk about the ads portion of it with your listener base. So what do you say? So an Apple ads exec calls You've Digital and asked for training for his or her ad sales or product team about how to think about all that AI can bring to this new surface area they have for ads? Does it look like something what you imagine ChatGPT's ad units will look like? Do you think there's things we're not thinking of? I imagine there's a lot of interesting things they can connect, knowing like your map data, your
Yeah.
location data, I mean, depending how they probably will be very careful about doing anything that looks like an ad targeted against your iMessage data. Like
Yep.
imagine that's probably a third rail for them. But yeah, what do you think? There are probably a lot of interesting things they can do that are new ad units we haven't seen from other sources before, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to think about this from the marketer perspective, right? That's the listener base here. If I'm a marketer and I'm looking at this news, I'm thinking about a couple things. One is I'm thinking about Apple sucking oxygen out of the other AI platforms potentially, right? So is Apple going to suck oxygen out of Gemini? If it does,
Yeah.
that's all of a sudden like a new
Hmm.
competitive angle that if I'm a marketer and I'm like thinking about the future of search, for example, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to start moving dollars towards AI visibility from traditional search.
Yeah.
Where are those people? Where am I going to find those people? And the obvious answers right now are Gemini and ChatGPT and maybe Claude to a lesser extent. But now you got to throw Apple into the mix. And when you have certain, obviously Gemini and ChatGPT monetize through ads. So the answer is fairly easy. Okay, I'm going to look at what the ad formats they have. I'm going to figure out how to optimize them, the bidding strategies, the creative. And obviously that's not easy. There's going to be a lot that goes into that. But what's going to be trickier is these AI companies like Anthropic, Claude, and Apple, which it's not imminent that they will ever have ads, right? And so how
Yeah.
do you think
Yeah.
about AI visibility? You know, if the world of search is shifting towards the world of AI, and now all of a sudden, instead of one big player that lets you run ads and SEO strategies all day long, it's fragmented across these like five different gateways for users. Your strategy gets way more complex, way more fragmented across different players, mix of paid and organic. And that's the challenge I think that marketers are going to have to deal with.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. And I think it's new diversity of sources. So yeah, maybe there's more ways they can more places they can spend their dollars. But I think this also brings diversity of different funnel touch points. So I think my view on the ads in AI opportunity, I guess, huge bias coming from someone who measures upper funnel. So it's always having partnership conversations with different players about upper funnel measurement. But you have so much rich context about someone well before the purchase point in these AI environments that you just don't
Mm-hmm.
have on Google search, right? Like in this, the common example everyone shares is if you type in like you're buying like new Nike sneakers, this color on Google, like there's some assumption that you're pretty far down the funnel ready to buy, or you type in flights to New York, like you're probably looking to at least price out a flight to New York, if not buy it. Whereas in a conversation about sneak running shoes or travel, like the AI knows, like, oh, that this person's not traveling till next year. They may not want to go to New York. They actually might want to go to Miami instead. And they said Nike, but they actually are not even a brand loyal to Nike. They actually just they saw Shiv's Nike, liked his kicks, and were curious what they were, but they're not actually going to buy them. They were just kind of collecting data. So those upper funnel those those upper funnel touch points that are just don't really exist in search, right? No one, you can't really find anyone who's credibly saying they're using Google search as an upper funnel piece, right? That it'd be a very expensive upper funnel
Yeah.
investment because it's just you're competing against everyone who's capturing lower funnel intent. So this can, I think whether it's Apple or other people with AI chatbots who can be rolling out ads soon, like you can have upper funnel units, you can have mid funnel units, you can have lower funnel units, right? You might say in the conversation, like, I give me 5 price points for these new sneakers and tell me where to buy them. Like, and then this person's pretty far down the darn funnel, if that case,
Yep.
versus like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of starting running again. Like, convince me I should be running versus cycling, and then tell me what footwear to buy. Like, that's you would show a different, not only different message and different creative, but might be a totally different ad unit that to that person, right? It might be
Totally.
a coupon to the someone more down the funnel, might be just a piece of content to the person further up the funnel. So I think that's interesting to think about from the marketer's standpoint of, does this open up more interactive upper funnel units that besides kind of the traditional upper funnel channels we've had with linear television, with CTV, with out of home.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting to see where that shakes out.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We could just keep talking about this for a long time, Chris. I mean,
I know.
the whole idea with AI
And we're
is it's
not even at the bar. Usually on a Friday afternoon,
I
we'd be at the
know.
bar in
I should have a
California.
beer. We should have a beer right
I
now,
know,
right,
we
Chris?
failed. We failed.
We feel. We're just sitting here behind desks at what is it, 4 p.m.
Uh,
So the thing that's interesting about the AI kind of consumer journey is it collapses the consumer journey, right? You can
yeah.
go from, just a very preliminary kind of, I don't even know why I'm here or what I'm talking about, to being ready to buy something really, really quickly. And if the consumer journey collapses, I think that's a very interesting opportunity and challenge for marketers. I think that creates all sorts of interesting opportunities and challenges from a measurement perspective. I think it's going to be tricky for measurement in particular because most of these are going to operate like walled gardens and you're not going to get a lot of signal out of them. And so the measurement's going to be tricky. But yeah, it's fascinating to think about the funnel, right? And like how
Yeah.
the marketing. And now we're like going off on a tangent. I think we got to go to the next story, Chris.
Yeah. I will. My closing point of that is, so we can move on from Apple. Yeah. I think I only partially agree with this, the conventional wisdom, the consumer funnel what collapses because I think, yes, is it more seamless? Is it collapse in the sense that there's not, we don't need to think of it as these rigid, immovable structures of upper funnel, mid funnel, lower funnel. But I'm not convinced human behavior changes just because the information is more accessible. Like, for example, like I have a dream to redo my backyard, but blocked by the minor detail that I don't have the money to do so. So I like, we'll talk to AI just because it's fun. Just like, what could I do? Here's a picture. What could I do with this? But I'm pretty upper funnel because like I'm not close to funding any of these ideas. So like AI can't change that, right? It can't. It's not going to condense my journey there. It's if that's still that's still a multi-year journey. Or if someone wants to buy a car that they're not going to actually buy for 3 years, you might still like. It might be fun to talk to AI about this
Yep.
aspirational purchase. So there's some things I think we should. I only say that to think from a measurement standpoint. Let's not assume that purchase windows always collapse. So therefore, we can just immediately say, let's just see if they bought the thing in 6 months. If they didn't, then the upper funnel touch point failed
Yep.
because everything collapsed. And that's not the case. Like there might still be the typically long 18-month plus 3-year plus purchase journeys in some categories. So measurement needs to measure the touch points along the way. So closing point on that. But then, yes, I will not
That's
block
a
you
good
from moving on to your
counterpoint.
next topic. Yeah.
No, no, that's a great counterpoint. I think in many cases you're right, and so the cautionary tale is right. I think in other cases, yeah, AI is going to speed up the research process, the consideration process, the purchase process. So, okay, let's move to the next story. And this one can be pretty quick, but it's IPO season, Chris, and
It
so
is. I know.
um, so we had.
Crazy. It's trillionaire season. There's gonna be trillionaires in the world now.
I don't know. Are we? We're not at trillionaires yet. Not quite yet.
They say, I think they say Elon could get there depending on where
Oh my
SpaceX
god,
gets priced. Because yeah, he's not starting
that's
from zero. He's starting from hundreds
yeah.
of billions. So I think there's a world where like in June that Elon's a trillionaire. So
Oh my
it's
god.
interesting to watch. Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. Well, so SpaceX, to your point, already IPO'd. I think it had a decent IPO. It's been
Yeah.
pretty much in a similar range since it went public, and it's valued at 2+ trillion. I think they started at 1.8 or something like that, so it popped a
Yeah.
little bit. And then, more importantly, Anthropic filed for IPO, and OpenAI also apparently confidentially filed for their IPO. Um, and I think for these guys, they feel like it's time. They need access to the public markets. In Anthropic's case, I think it's like a little bit of a tale of two different companies, right? Because I think Anthropic is kind of a rocket ship over the last year. They're doing really well. I read somewhere that they're close to being profitable, which is insane. Because on the other side of the spectrum, you have
Yeah.
OpenAI. OpenAI's burn rate, I saw somewhere it's 14 times that of Anthropic's burn rate,
Oh wow.
whereas the revenue is in a similar ballpark and the valuation, the market cap's in a similar ballpark. I honestly do not understand. I'm not a financial guy. I don't understand why OpenAI's market cap should be in the same ballpark as Anthropic's if Anthropic's almost profitable and OpenAI is burning 14 times the money and they have similar revenue profiles. But what do I know? I don't know. Who
Yeah.
knows? Um,
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and I guess since neither of us have lawyers to remind us in this call, we should tell your listeners we don't. This is not financial advice. Discussions of public equities is not financial advice, especially from two ad tech people who are not buying and selling stocks for a living. But yeah, but you're right. It's a world that we just simply don't live in. When you look at these, just the price to earnings ratio, like the revenue, the valuation multiples on revenue, just things you don't see right in a an ad tech deal, right? Things trade for 3x recently.
right.
Hopefully higher going forward, but it's been single digits. And then to see
Yep.
things that like over 100x is just a different world than marketers usually operate in.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fascinating because it's and these things are so big. You again, not financial advice, but like personally, I had to think of like, do you these things will sink into your portfolio just because they're so big, right? I think SpaceX is not eligible for the S&P 500 because of the profitability threshold. So it's not going to sneak into any of your S&P 500 ETFs, but it will sneak in through other ways, other index funds you hold. So if you
Sure.
don't want this, you actually have to take action to remove what you can, and depending on your where you're holding your money. So I would think about this week, like, do you actually want to? And I generally try not to pick individual stocks, but when something is such a big piece and so the valuation is so high, you have to make a decision of do you want to actually break your rule and try to exclude that, or do you want to buy the hype and say, hey, the whatever they had today, 15-20% pop, like that's the beginning, and this is going to be quite a ride and you can make a ton of money in 6 months. Like I have no idea.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. And yeah, I think how the market puts up with the burn rate will be interesting to watch. In general, early stage and growth stage investors are way more comfortable with scary burn rates than
Yep.
public market investors. Like even Google stock was down big this past week, went from near 400 to near 350 for think a few reasons, but a commonly accepted one was they announced well they were diluting shareholders with that new raise, but also they had a big increase to their expenditures, their capital expenditures. So public markets get scared off by this more so than private market investors do. So it'll be interesting to watch how public markets react to these pretty scary burn numbers.
Yep.
But also the potential, right? Like SpaceX's whole thing was like we have all these ways of making money,
Yep.
and from what's been reported or leaked on Anthropic's numbers, just like amazing growth rate. Like they're just crushing it with corporate America. It's becoming the AI platform for corporate work. And I'm bullish on OpenAI's ad business. I think they
Yep.
have a great opportunity to add like they can build a multi-billion-dollar ad business pretty quickly. They're hiring great people. It seems is what the news you read and what's been publicly mention of hiring people from great places, and they're seem to be moving very fast, moving quickly, and making decisions and experimenting fast and building fast. So
Yeah.
they have just such huge consumer reach. Like with that many smart people, they're pulling in from across the ecosystem. They're going to figure out how to rake in billions pretty quickly. So um, and I think they need that. Like I've seen all the math of like the economics don't make sense for at the current price points without an ad business. Like it needs to happen. So it'll get the
Yeah.
resources needed. So yeah, I think I mean, no predictions made now will age well. So like we'll have to commit to listening to whatever we say now in 10 years on the month of
Yeah.
these IPOs. I can't think of a prediction I'd make that would age well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like it's fun to watch, and it's pretty historic time to be in. Like this could be a month that like finance students will study in 20
Yeah.
years in, in college finance classes.
That's a really funny. Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I think your point about the ads business being a key part of the success of an open AI is really, really important, right? Like OpenAI right now is trying to thread this needle between, burning a ton of money, trying to shift a little bit towards the enterprise in terms of like their actual, you know, uh, the user side of their business, and competing with Anthropic on that front, but then also trying to make ads work at the same
Yeah,
time. And they have to
yeah,
thread that needle in order to be a successful business. Otherwise, they're just going to burn themselves to the ground in the next few years, right? Like all the
yeah,
projections say as much. And so the ads business is going to be really important. What's going to be interesting to me too with Anthropic going public is at what point does Anthropic start feeling the investor pressure
yeah,
as well to be like, okay, well, we got to start monetizing through some kind of ad offering. Maybe
yeah.
it doesn't look like Chat GPT's, maybe it doesn't look like Google's, maybe it's something completely different. But once you go public, all bets are off. You're beholden to your shareholders. You're beholden to the public market, which means, and we all know how this goes. Everything becomes an ad network at some point or the other. So
Yeah, which that would be extremely ironic to Bill and the Apple Google irony you mentioned earlier, just because of the now infamous Super Bowl ad that
yeah,
Anthropic ran,
yeah, mm-hmm,
using an advertisement to bash advertising, which
yep, yep,
we I know you put out some thoughts on. We put out a couple op-eds on that.
yep,
Our view was like, hey, this shows people like the reason. it worked and people laughed at it and didn't see the joke on the irony was like they were using basically an upper funnel ad to bash spammy lower funnel tactics. They were making fun of all the
Sure.
aggressive digital lower funnel tactics that people get sick of, but they were doing so in a beautiful Super Bowl storytelling narrative, which people are comfortable with, like a safe upper funnel ad. So that was our sense of why that irony kind of didn't burn them. But yeah, it'd be interesting, but not unprecedented if Anthropic rolled out an ads business. Didn't Netflix say
Totally.
publicly like 100 times that they would never do ads, and then
I mean,
they did?
Sam Altman said
Well, I
it
say that,
last year,
yeah.
like,
That's true.
so
He said a year before. Yeah, better comp.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, he said
yeah,
a year before, or at least things adjacent to it. I think he said, like, I don't like ads or something. But yeah, there's
yeah,
companies that say they'll never do it, or, and that, or the candidate who swears he or she will never run for president up until the day they do. So yeah, I think
oh
I would
boy,
not write off Anthropic having an ads business, especially if they get jealous and have some FOMO of watching ChatGPT have a successful ad product by
totally.
OpenAI. So yeah, it'll be
Cool.
interesting to watch. And what's your take on Google? I think Google's like such a fascinating intersection here, being the world's largest advertising company and
Hmm.
one of the top three players in AI, but
Hmm.
then also saying like they're not bringing ads to Gemini with some asterisks on that. So,
Well, I think
what do you think their strategy is?
their position to me has been very clear, right? There's a Gemini app, right? And you can
Yeah,
go use the Gemini app, but we
yeah,
don't really care to push people into that app. What we want people doing is using AI natively in all of the
yeah,
different Google spaces and surfaces, right?
yeah,
It's Google
yeah,
Maps.
yeah,
And
yeah.
now
Google
they did the
Docs, Google
big,
Sheets.
yeah,
Yeah,
and they did the huge search overhaul a couple weeks ago.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they announced that. And the same time they announced the big search overhaul, they announced a bunch of new ad products that are going to live in the new AI search. Right. And
yeah, yeah,
so my perspective is eventually, is there even going to be a Gemini app, or is it all going to
yeah. Or
just
it's just
merge into
it's a
like just
federated
Google?
distributed product. Yeah,
Yeah. It's just like
um,
google.com. And also
yeah.
they will use data from the Gemini app, I believe, to inform how they advertise to individuals. So
Oh,
that,
interesting.
I believe, is not off limits.
Oh,
So
so
I
that's
mean,
fair
it's
game. Interesting. So
yeah,
things they learn
yep,
about you from a conversation with the Gemini app that
correct,
could show up in Google Maps location they show you when you're
correct,
talking to Gemini and Google Maps. Yeah, that's interesting.
yep.
Yeah, and I think, but you're right. They have all these different service areas, as you said. Like, I know it's pretty pervasive now in their Office suite, right? In G Suite. I don't know if you tried it. It's pretty cool. I just started this month. You can just put equals AI in a Google Sheet cell and then type in a prompt and it figures
Oh,
out.
really?
And yeah, I'd say it's not like A plus. It's not as good as it should be, but it's still pretty good. Sometimes it nails it. So yeah, just
Yeah,
type equals AI parentheses and then a quote and type in your prompt, and it does
nice.
some pretty cool stuff. So like that's a clever, I thought, very clever insertion of Gemini into just a very popular product surface. And then or Maps, Google Travel, their Google Flights
Hmm.
is like a not too far behind Kayak, I think. So that's like like I know Kayak's been pretty aggressive pushing that little AI box of like, tell us what you're thinking about, and we'll do the
Yep,
search for you. Um,
yep,
so that's something they have. And yeah, think of what all the things they'll do with. I know on the creator side on YouTube is interesting to see, and
yep,
kind of all just what they do with their massive, as soon to be the world's biggest video company, like
yep.
what they
Yeah,
can do
yeah,
on that side. So yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting to watch, and it'd be interesting soon of when like search is not what drives Google's stock price. I mean, maybe analysts would argue it's already not. It's already the AI piece and the cloud
yeah.
piece, but
Cloud, yeah,
which is
yeah,
just fascinating to think about. Like just 6 years ago, that'd be unfathomable to think of. Like it was basically as search went, so went the business. So it's
yeah,
amazing how a company of that scale of
yeah.
is
And
still changing so quickly.
Google being such a big AI company and an AI player and monetizing the AI through ads in a big way, like puts a lot of pressure on every other AI company, right? If you're going to compete with Google as an AI business, you can't just leave an entire kind of monetization opportunity on the table out of principle if you're
Yeah,
answering to shareholders, right? So, yeah, we've been talking about ChatGPT ads as like, oh, well, they're going to pressure Anthropic and they're going to pressure, Apple to release more ad products. Well, if Apple and Anthropic are competing against ChatGPT and Google of all companies, and they're monetizing AI through ads, like they're all going to have to play game,
Yeah.
play ball at some point with
Yeah.
ads.
No, I
You know,
agree.
so
I think that's right. Yeah.
um,
That's
okay,
good.
let's
So
go to
sounds like
yeah. Go ahead.
more business for all of us, more ads to run and measure.
More
For those with
ads,
an ad
more
tech.
ads.
Yeah.
Um, okay, let's go to quick hits of the week. So this is kind of lightning round format. I'm just gonna talk through a couple of other news stories that popped. If you have something to say it. If you don't, I'm just gonna keep moving, Chris.
Let's do it.
So so the first news of the week, quick hit of the week, was Anthropic announced their latest kind of step change in models, right? So they were kind of in the 4 point whatever range, and
Yep.
that was all. Those were all Opus models, and now they're moving into the 5 dot
Yeah.
range, and those are now called Fable. Um, I didn't quite understand. They also have Mythos, which is like built on top of Fable or something like
Yeah,
that.
Mythos is well, that was the one that scared everyone. So Mythos, they came
Yeah,
out and
right,
said this is going to cause the cybersecurity meltdown, the end all meltdowns, and like
right.
every single exploit becomes a 0 day exploit. And so they actually handcuff that. I think they're keeping that in the hands of a small list of
Yep,
approved security researchers. So,
yep.
which is like sounds like a I don't know. Some type of bad Michael Bay script of like so this researcher went rogue and released it in the wild and everyone's computer shut down. But
Yeah.
you can hear the scary voice movie trailer for that already. But yeah, so I'm kind of fascinated by the Mythos narrative. I've been following that since once. I mean, it's again, it's like it's perfect media bait. Like this thing will ruin the
Yeah,
world,
yeah,
but we're not going to give it to you yet. We're only going to give it to these
yeah.
few people in this lab somewhere. What could go wrong? Nothing ever escapes labs and ruins the world. Don't worry. So I'm
COVID.
still fascinated. Huh? You glad you picked that up? As my coy illusion there, but I was just yeah. I think that's like a fascinating story. But yeah, I think Fable 5 is going to be interesting. I've not played around with it yet, but but people have been saying it just I use the word step function. I think that's right. All these big model changes are step functions. So
Yep.
it's it's just amazing. That's where point we mentioned earlier. Like we have to get out of this mindset of where in software apps where things change relatively quickly compared to non-digital products, but like things don't change that much in 6 months. No software product is like foundationally different in 6 months, but with these AI models it is. So things that were just simply impossible in 2025 are now possible now, and that's just
Totally.
really hard to wrap our heads around as humans.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I haven't messed around with it either yet. I'm pretty excited to see what it can do. But yeah, every time a new model comes out, we don't have to like sit down and talk about all the things. It's cheaper, it's faster, it's better. On we go. Let's keep moving. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
next story. So there was a smattering of like ad companies that release new products. I don't think any one of them was like particularly notable in a big way. MediaOcean launched something called Nevo, which is a AI platform for all the campaign workflow stuff that they do and what they automate and ad serving and things like that. Magnite launched some kind of like orchestration product. So you know, a bunch of announcements per the usual, and those are the quick hits of the week. I didn't have a lot more, unless you
Yeah.
saw
No,
something
it's
else pop, Chris.
no, I think it's interesting, and I haven't spent too much time with Nevo. I would never bet against a wise man like Bill running the show over at Mediaocean. So I like they're a smart strategic bunch. So I'm sure they have a good plan behind what they're announcing, but I don't have any intel or color on it yet. I do think it's interesting to see this next area of campaign launching, campaign orchestration of getting a lot of attention in advertising because you think of what's really changed in advertising AI since the public release of these LMs in what November 2022. So not even 4 years ago. So we've had 4 years worth of panels of AI will change everything. And I think
Hmm.
we're still parsing. Well, what does everything actually mean in advertising? So I think we live to the era of creative, like, hey, this can actually make quick versions of creative very fast. And I think that's clearly happening. Like we're
Yep.
on path to a world where I don't know what year most TV commercials we watch will be made by AI, but like it's not too far away, I don't think. And
Yep.
then you had a world of well, like where we live in measurement, where a lot of things that required human expertise started to be augmented with AI, and that was
Hmm.
interesting to watch. We had a front row seat to that, and then we've heard some nibbles at campaign launch and campaign orchestration, like hey, the AI media planning, and
Hmm.
it makes sense. Like AI can be a really smart human, and
Hmm.
it can empower humans even smarter. It can be giving a calculator to a mathematician. And I know like Viant, to give them a shout out, they were pretty early in this. They had that cool demo, I want to say like 2 years ago with
Yep.
Tim and Chris demoing the it was like I forget what they called it, but it was their AI
Viant
media
AI.
planning. Is fine. There
Yeah.
you go. How could I forget
There you
something
go.
as straightforward as that? But yeah, I remember it was like they did a media. They had a chat tool to build a media plan, and and then besides them, it was like the world was kind of quiet about AI media planning for a couple of years. So it does make sense
Totally.
that a lot of these planning and orchestration workflows will start to come out. So yeah, I'd love to talk to like some media planners. Well, this is a good thing. We'll have to pick the brain of some people at Can about of like what's happening in that world. The humans who plan campaigns for a living, like how are they racking these tools? Or is there like a Jevons paradox happening there where their jobs are actually completely safe because there's even more work to do. There's more campaigns to launch.
Yep.
There's more iterations that we can play with on a campaign. So they're going to be as busy as ever,
Yep.
or is it going to be something else where there's like we're going to actually see a bunch of things move from human work to AI work overnight? So be interesting to watch them, and it's good that I think it's good for the advertising industry to have more concrete things to talk about AI actually changing because we've had so many as an industry, so many fluffy like panels at conferences for years, like without talking about true concrete change. So I'm glad
Yeah.
to see this.
Okay, great transition actually. Let's talk about your work, Chris, a little bit at Upwave and what you guys are building. So, my first question to you is, you guys you measure brand outcomes by doing, traditional A/B testing and you're trying to figure out how brand advertising is impacting a marketer's kind of like key proxy brand metrics, right? That ultimately lead to a business getting bigger. How is like I guess my first question, very tactical, like how has AI kind of crept its way into your product? Like what did it look like pre-AI? What does it look like post-AI?
Yeah.
If different at all, that'd be interesting to hear.
Yeah, no, I think we're a good case study of, I'd argue, real concrete product changes from AI. So, yeah, for your listeners who aren't familiar with us, and if you want to be familiar, reach out. We'd love to talk. But for those unfamiliar with us, so yeah, we're used by brands, media agencies, DSPs, and publishers to measure the brand outcomes of campaigns. So, an upper funnel change in a brand KPI. And yeah, we take attitudinal data collected by millions of consumer surveys we run every year. And we're building control and expose group automatically on campaigns to do an experimental design to show that we can isolate the lift on a KPI that's caused specifically by the advertising. So it's not attribution where you're saying something happened and then an ad was shown. Let's just look at that correlation and say that's probably what caused it. We're actually trying to prove the causal impact of the advertising. And if you think of what's changed, really anything that was gated by human expertise has been massively unlocked in our world. So, like the big thing for us was we're in a world where our customers, advertisers, and publishers, they all want what used to be called the wrap report.
Mm-hmm.
So the PowerPoint that tells you what happened on a campaign. And I fought this losing battle where for years I tried to convince the ecosystem like we don't need wrap reports. We have dashboards and we have APIs. You can consume it that
Sure.
way. And I like overwhelmingly lost that battle. People said, no, like this is still the way we communicate. So we just said, actually as a company stopped offering PowerPoints for a bit, which like wasn't phenomenal for our business. And then we realized in late 2023, actually like the models are good enough. We can actually do a campaign report entirely with LLMs with no human in the loop and extremely low error rate, way lower than what we get from humans doing them. So we do that. So we moved all reporting to AI and have done like way more than probably 20x the reports we used to do. And our business has grown since then, but not by 20x. So like the amount of
Mm-hmm.
output has changed so much. We don't even people don't think about it as a wrap report anymore. Wrap report it was at the end of the campaign when the campaign wrapped, because of course you can only do a report once, or maybe you get a mid campaign because of course you can only do it maybe more than once. Now you can get 50 reports on a campaign. We don't care. Click a button and wait 4 seconds and get it. So the reporting, again, that used to take human expertise, and now that's been unlocked by these LLMs. So the reporting has massively changed. And then another thing that in measurement is requires human expertise is the adults portion, right? Like as much as we want to say that adults is a solved problem, and that placing an a one line of code into an ad server never breaks. Like when you're running something billions of times a week, like Sigma processes will still break uh, um, a lot. So like that used to be something fully human. So we've done a lot of AI, even if you're just still having a human in the loop to answer an
Yep.
email, but the human can find the answer and debug faster. The way to finding out, like as our CTO George, likes to point out, like knowing how to debug this specific macro problem on the world's 15th biggest DSP that is a problem unique to that DSP is like a very hard esoteric piece of knowledge for someone to have, and to hire a human who has that knowledge is hard, but
Yep.
AI has that knowledge. So we've really supercharged the product support. And then our next area that we're excited about, and I'm curious to see where the industry goes here, is on the insights side. So measurement is not just about the metrics and kind of putting the weight on the scale to see what happened and the numbers. Measurement's about the takeaway, the insight, the storytelling.
Yep.
And we've actually started testing campaign insights with AI. So we have product AI campaign insight sessions. So and it's available in chat to our customers. We're doing testing for video mode as well. And you can actually chat to say when when your Upwave representative's not available, or it's midnight, or it's the weekend, or you see an answer in 30 seconds, don't have time to even call us. You can actually get the answer from AI, and it's still early, but getting very positive feedback from customers. Again, that human expertise is needed to answer a complex, nuanced question about a campaign. Give me this specific cut of data. Oh, actually, no, I changed my mind. Reslice my data by this
Hmm.
instead of by that. And change my time frame from the whole campaign just the last 2 weeks because I made this change in the last 2 weeks. Oh, don't show me for everyone. Just show me for the males on the campaign, or just show me for the
Hmm.
females, whatever. All that stuff that was used to be humans scrambling. That's now AI. And I think that the next frontier is actually beyond just campaign insights, but what I call account insights. So I have this vision of the virtual QBR, and I don't think
Hmm.
it's that far away, right? Think of all and well, I'm saying we would kick humans out of QBRs. I think we bring AI to QBRs and still have the humans. But think of the QBR process in advertising and like the prep that goes into that, and the back and forth, and just the production of artifacts for that, and the all the questions that come up that have to be, those are great questions, Shiv. Like we'll get back to you by next week. Like you write down your list of questions from the QBR, and then you come back next week with an email with your answers. Imagine AI came to that. So
Yeah.
beyond, like some of the CML pops in the QBR and asks the questions of, hey, Shiv, from our last 17 campaigns, what have we seen for here about building this KPI? And if we look at our attention data cross tab to our brand lift data, and I bring in our sales data, tell me this, um, what happens to this metric? Like that's
Yep.
something a human is not going to be able to do on the fly ever. Um,
Yep.
but an AI agent can, if that data was already input. So I think that's going to be pretty powerful when you start having executive level conversations from measurement vendors that have AI present, because you're just going to supercharge the pace of insight. So
Yep. Okay.
and we're not there yet, but it's, I don't know. I think people should watch this space. I think
Yeah.
it's something that a lot of smart people at a lot of different measurement companies are pushing hard on.
I have so that's fascinating. So what I heard, quick summary, I heard you're using it to automate, the insights and, what you take out of the data. You're using it to automate kind of reporting functionality,
Yep. Yep.
decks, QBRs, things like that. So that's all awesome. I guess one thing I wanted to ask you, pick your brain on a little bit is we've started seeing a lot of interest from some of our learners, especially on like just this concept of measuring using synthetic data. I don't know
Yeah.
if you have a
Yeah.
stance on that, right? Like synthetic audiences, very popular. Like, can you shortcut your way to at least, a 90% confidence level in an incrementality test using a synthetic audience, but you're like living and breathing this stuff all
Yeah.
day long. Like, what
Yeah.
are your
No,
perspectives on that?
I do. So I have a lot, I have thoughts on this. So I think you do brand lift without surveys? Yes, but not with synthetic respondents. I've seen a lot of the synthetic respondent companies. They all found me because like we started in Y Combinator, and actually before we got into ad measurement, we started as a more generalized consumer insights company with survey data. So like we've and the kind of survey based entrepreneur world is not massive, so we kind of all find each other. So a lot of these
Okay.
synthetic respondent founders found their way to me. I think there's bullish on a lot of the use cases that I knew personally from past lives of what like spinning up a 100-person sample for some quick question that you can probably get good enough with synthetic. So I was bullish on those use cases. The space hasn't really moved that quickly. Most founders that came to me pivoted. They got out of it
Okay.
and got into adjacent spaces. Now there's still people doing it, so not everyone, but like most people who are early, and early being like in 2023, the people who are doing synthetic survey response, most of them pivoted. It's still a thing. There's still people doing it. So I'm not trying to be negative on the space, but that's a signal when a lot of early people kind of bail. And I think I have found it just is not possible for our world. It is not. It's possible to model like how if you say here's how humans think on an existing topic, it can try to model that and recreate that if you ask similar things. To recreate how a human will react to seeing a piece of creative for the first time out in the wild while consuming content for the first time, when there's so many confounding variables of what makes someone remember an ad and be moved by an ad and take action from an ad. It's just
Yeah.
impossible for synthetic sample to recreate that, because it's like if you see a new Coca-Cola ad for the World Cup that no human's ever seen, and we watched that while watch the World Cup, like drinking Coca-Cola with our family, like you can't recreate that with synthetic respondents. So I think there are plenty of use cases for synthetic respondents. So good luck to all those companies. I've from all of our testing, we just are pretty confident brand lift will not be one of them. But I did say I believe in survey list brand lift is possible. So we've been testing with some publishers this concept of predictive brand lift, because we think there are other signals you can get on an upper funnel campaign, that because some campaigns you can't justify the investment or the time to survey,
Sure.
or there's other constraints. It's too small, it's too regional, it's in some a few other kind of or policy factors preventing you from surveying in certain cases. So in those environments, we think predictive brand lift, which Upwave is testing and pioneering, will be the answer, because there's so many things you know about an ad impression, right? Like you may know the attention about it. You may know the creative quality score, which now there's all these vendors that give creative quality scores if you send them a piece of an ad asset, and you know a bunch of like the telemetry that a DSP knows when an ad runs. You know a bunch of things about the campaign. We know the reach and frequency of the campaign. That's very predictive of brand outcomes. You know about something about the brand, right? Like if it's a Coca-Cola versus a mom and pop soda, that makes a big difference in how much headspace there is to grow the KPIs. So it's all these things you actually know about the ad when it runs these days before you even survey. If you have a
Yep.
massive database of Bayesian priors to tap into of past campaigns, which companies like Upwave do, then like as our bet goes that you can actually make a prediction of what brand lift would have been if you had surveys to say, okay, we
Got
have
it.
all these predictive signals. So I'm bullish on that. So, and some people like call that synthetic brand lift. So one of
Yeah.
our friends, Mark Ryan, wrote this great article. Your listeners can Google about like this is like a year ago, a call for the rise of synthetic brand lift. We were already calling it predictive brand lift, and because of the baggage of synthetic response, we didn't shift to that name.
Okay.
But you can see his take on it. Space is not too dissimilar from our view of it. So there's a lot of smart people out there thinking that we can move to always on measurement.
Yeah. Okay.
And basically, there's more signal out there. Can we capture it? Like, will AI models let us learn faster from all this signal we're capturing on these campaigns? So I
Yeah.
think it's
Okay.
exciting, and I think because my bet, my this is like an unknowable number. I spent years trying to answer this question of what percentage of upper funnel campaigns of any type of upper funnel measurement on them, not just Upway, but any partner. And no one really knows, but like it's a minority. It's small. Like I think on the high end, it's probably 30%. And a
Wow.
few ways of justifying that and triangulating to that answer. But which means like you could at least triple the value that the measurement industry brings advertisers to give upper funnel outcomes
Sure.
in terms of the campaigns measured. So that's exciting and very early, but was something that we think could be pretty impactful.
Cool. Predictive brand lift. I love that. I didn't think of that
There,
before. I mean,
there
it
we go.
feels
Should we do a U of Digital to train the world on predictive brand lift? I think we should.
sure. I like it. I like it. All right. Chris, one last thing. If you want to leave the listeners with one last thing they should be thinking about as it pertains to AI and especially upper funnel measurement, what might it be for the listeners?
Yeah, I'll give people the parlor trick I have had in different conversations at industry events, which is you, the listener right now, can ship an app tonight using AI. So I think the ability to these vibe coding tools have advanced so far that I'm shocked when you talk to normal people, not us AI geeks about and us ad tech geeks about this. When I say, oh, you could build a site tonight by talking to an service like Lovable, just like you talk with ChatGPT. And they
Yep.
go, I don't know how to code. Like, that's the point. You don't need to know how to code. You don't need to know anything.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
you can actually build an app that you can send to your friends tonight. And I started playing around with some of these tools, and shout out to Lovable. I think that's, I know, not the most advanced, but I
Yep.
think that's the simplest to use. And we'll do this. Like, I'll be reading bedtime stories with our kids, and they'll like make a joke idea for a silly app, and we'll whip up my phone and type in the prompt,
Oh, cool.
finish bedtime stories, and then look at it, and built a little mini portfolio, like silly stuff that the kids use, but some like real things for learning or for school or for sports or something. And
Yeah.
it's pretty neat. And I've showed people this and at like industry conferences, and it still feels out of reach. And I'm like, no, you can do this. Like, just download
Yeah.
this app, pay your $25 a month,
Yep.
and type in a prompt, and it will do everything to design the back end, set up the database for you, the copywriting, like
Yep.
everything it does. And I just feel like most people still don't know how easy it is to do that. And
Yeah.
if nothing else, it's fun. I'm not saying I'm making money off these things, but it's fun, and it lets you be hands on with these new models.
Hey, marketers, go build an app in
Go
Lovable.
build.
And no,
Yeah,
well, Lovable did not pay us to
exactly. Yeah, not
um,
yet, at least not yet.
not yet, not yet. All right, Chris. Well, this has been awesome. Thanks for joining us on the pod. Hopefully
Yeah,
we'll have
thanks
you
for having me.
back.
This is fun. Next
And
time with a beer
yeah,
in hand, as you promised. You promised a beer next
yes,
time, so we'll
I
make that work.
promise a beer
But
next time.
thanks for having
Um,
me. And sorry, Miles, we missed you. We'll have to have you join next time.
Yep.
And
All right.
we'll
Yep.
talk
And
soon.
thanks to our listeners. Thank you, Chris, again. Go USA.
Go
And we'll see you
USA
on
and the World Cup.
the
Let's do it.
yes. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Shiv. Talk soon.